Good morning. Welcome to our webinar titled 5 Reasons Why Internet Marketing Isn't Working for You and How to Fix Them. This is one of our 3 Deep Going Deep series. Thank you for joining us today. We have a full house. We appreciate you providing us 30 minutes of your time today. This will be a fast-paced seminar, and hopefully you'll get some very good online marketing tips out of it. My name is Dan Derosier. I'm the Vice President of 3 Deep Marketing, and I have with me Jeff Sauer. Jeff is our Director of Interactive Marketing. Jeff?
Hello, everybody.
So what we're going to talk about today is really some of the things that corporations, and whether they have dealer channels, sales channels, franchise channels, how to get them to work more closely together. It's been a plaguing problem for this industry since internet marketing became more prevalent, and the things that you're going to see today are going to hopefully solve some of those. For those of you that are on the phone, we won't be able to hear you, but you will be able to see off on the right-hand toolbar a way to ask a question. So if you do have a question as we're going through this, please pull that, and people on our staff here will relay the question to us as we're going through the webinar today. Thank you. Okay, what are you going to learn today? And this was sent out in the previous email that you may have received, or direct mail responses. Look how simple website structure is, whether it's through your corporate website or actually through some of your dealer channels, how you can help make some improvements there to increase your inbound lead flow. How effective management of pay-per-click can help, whether you're doing it at a corporate level or whether your dealers are doing it or your franchise locations are doing it themselves. You know, really, local search is becoming more and more prevalent. Google says about 20% of all searches now have local intent. How do you actually claim some of those listings so you're found on things like Google Places? Another area is, you know, a lot of people are talking about social media campaigns. How can you leverage those? There's some basic ways that a lot of organizations still aren't doing, and there's some more complex ways, and we'll talk about both. And then lastly, sometimes when we're talking about online marketing, we forget about immediate follow-up, and we found with a lot of corporations and individual locations that they really don't respond well to internet leads. They don't look at them as important as maybe other channels. That needs to change, and you'll see some dramatic studies that indicate how important that is to the success of your campaigns. Now let's talk about search as a lead generation vehicle. And this is important, especially for organizations that are doing traditional media. Traditional media is extremely important to make your online campaigns more successful. If you look in the top right, 67% of consumers have gone online to search for products that were advertised offline. And then if you look down below, you can see 89% of consumers now start product research online, and then they make an offline purchase, whether it's in a store, whether it's through a dealer network, whether it's through a franchise, whether it's through another online property. And all these things commingle together, and when you're doing these in synergy, you actually lift all channels and you get better results. Now I'm going to have Jeff talk a little bit about, and the example we're using here, as you'll see through the rest of the presentation, is around the window replacement category, which is a very, very large, broad topic. And what we're trying to do is use that as an example, try to relate it to your own industry, but the application here applies across every industry and every channel, especially those in the home improvement area. Jeff?
Yeah, so for a lot of companies, the biggest problem is establishing a baseline as to what is going on in the marketplace, what are people looking for, how do we find them, and how do we capture that information. One thing that we do is we do some research around the keywords that people are typing into the search engines to understand really what they're looking for. And as you see here, if somebody's looking for something in the category of window replacement, there's a lot of different areas that they might look for. They might be looking for price, types of windows, reviews, all kinds of different things that really influence a purchaser's decision.
And you can see from these numbers that they're relatively large. We're talking monthly searches here. So when you think of replacement windows, we're talking 5 million monthly searches. And one other thing I wanted to point out, so broad categories that a lot of manufacturers or their channels are missing, they tend to be focused on the brands. Although it's a big number, the 822,000 here, the number is relatively small relative to some of these other categories.
Yeah, so the next best thing to do is when you look at what people are searching for is try to bucket them into where they are in the buying process. So when people are typing in the brand name, or when they type in your brand name on a search engine and try to find you, they're fairly motivated, and they actually have some kind of history with you or some kind of knowledge of you, so that's why they type in your name. A lot of the marketing that you might do in other channels like direct mail, TV, things like that are going to be motivating these people to contact you. That's great, and that's how most manufacturers and dealers will get leads online, is by piggybacking on the brand awareness. But what you need to look at is, how do we increase that marketplace? How do we get more people interested in us? So what we start to do is we look at things that are searches around a need base. So somebody is looking for, they know they need new windows, but they don't really know the first place of where to go. So they start looking on the search engine for things like types of windows, the type of window that's in their house, what is the energy rating on a window. So they know that they need something, but they don't really know what brand they want to choose yet. And then if you go out even further, the overall marketplace is really, it has a lot of people who are broadly looking for certain things. We call them the suspects. And what you can do there is you can get a lot of coverage and help them early on in their buying process by targeting them through search engine optimization.
And one of the things we can't forget is, if you look at the motivated buyers, they definitely have higher conversion rates because they have already selected a brand or down to a couple of vendors that they want to do business with. So they have higher conversion rates. But you can see a needs-based person, somebody who's looking for a double-hung window or an energy-efficient window, they have decent conversion rates as well. But somebody in the broad category who might be looking, they're very early in the buying cycle, it might be 3 to 6 months before they make a decision. Again, all these, whether they're suspects, prospects, or buyers, are important to get into your engagement funnel and then act on them accordingly so you can ultimately convince them to buy from you. So what we're really trying to show here is that when you look at most companies from an online marketing perspective, most of the things they're doing today are very focused around brands and products, and you can see that their funnel, trying to be what we have depicted here on the left, is around those types of things. They're very product focused, very brand focused. And what we're suggesting is you need to broaden the universe, create a bigger funnel, so in fact people that are searching for broad categories around replacement windows, the type of window, whether it's a double hung, a slider, etc., brands of windows, or pricing around windows, or other characteristics that are important to this or the categories that you would have. Let's create a broader funnel. Let's attract them in and engage them and ultimately get them to convert. The net of this is that you're finding more people that are interested in your products and services at a high level, and then ultimately getting more people in the funnel and converting them ultimately into sales. And we're going to look at some ROI perspectives that should get your attention. So now we talked about really as what's going on from a website perspective. Manufacturers or the corporate locations typically are very brand or product oriented. We talked about that. It's hard to find a dealer or a contractor if in fact you have that relationship for selling your products. The dealer's challenge is typically they have a lot of outdated content. It's not very search optimized. They probably offer other products besides the product they're selling for you, and so there's competing products and services there, and sometimes you have a challenge converting those people into leads. From a paid search perspective, sometimes you'll see corporations do broad campaigns around branded paid search terms, but they miss a lot of the higher level terms like replacement window as example, or certain categories. Most of the dealers we found, or the sales locations, typically they may not be doing that. They may have tried it because they're not very efficient at it and don't do it that often. They've lost their cost competitive edge, even though paid search can be one of the most cost-effective online channels there is. From a local perspective, and from a social media perspective, I'm going to have kind of Jeff bring up those topics.
Yep. So from a local search perspective, a lot of times the manufacturer's challenge is that they're not there physically. So the key to local search is the location. And without having local outlets at a manufacturer level, a lot of times they are prohibited from actually showing up in these search results. What you can do is you can actually structure your website more kindly to local search results and actually start to get some traffic in that particular area to try to generate leads. From a dealer challenge perspective, a lot of times they won't register themselves with local search directories. They might not even know that they exist, or they just have they don't have the knowledge of how to get that done. So when you do a local search for either a particular product line in a local area or the overall category, like something like replacement windows, neither the dealer or the manufacturer will show up. And from a social media perspective, a lot of times manufacturers, they are in a great position where they have a national program with an outlet, with a network of people who are selling their products, but they don't provide them with the materials they need in order to get started. Things like how-to videos on a YouTube channel, a corporate Facebook page that they can use to funnel potential leads in communications with people, and then as well just overall reviewing of the products. If you have the best window in town, you should let everybody know that by encouraging reviews.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. And then the last one, really, contact center. Surprisingly, people forget this channel, which is traditional, old school. Hey, answer the phone. A lot of corporate locations typically will get a lead either on a web form or they'll get a call, and they don't quickly pass those on to their dealer channel to actually take that lead while it's hot. And we'll show you some ways and some metrics that will challenge you to take on that and change that perspective. And then many dealers, frankly, they don't have the infrastructure for a sophisticated call center. A lot of the calls go to receptionists, and they're rarely following a script. And the idea of that script is to get an appointment with the homeowner and let the salespeople do their jobs. So now we're going to talk specifically about the different challenges that we bucketed in the previous slide. So website content challenges. A manufacturer's website is usually around brands and product content. We're showing one here from Infinity by Marvin. In contrast, these sites really, they're not well organized around locations, and they miss a lot of search opportunity that we talked about earlier. From the dealer perspective, these are independent dealers in this specific case. They may not be optimized around terms of their locations, and a lot of times you can see, if you look closely, you can see Infinity on there. But Window Pro, as an example, has a lot of other products that they sell, and because of that, sometimes there's discontinuity between when somebody hits this page and looking specifically for Windows, they may not find it, and they may not be converted to a lead like we would normally like to see.
So this next section is showing what happens when you go out to aim to fix that. So here's an example of a before and after on a website. As you can see, it looks fairly similar from an overall layout perspective, but there's some key things that we did here that really helped improve the conversion rate for this website. We did things like improving the call to action, improving phone number placement. If you notice on the left-hand example, there's actually no phone number on there at all. We added a call to the phone number, and that increased the number of people that contacted quite a bit. We added things like a contact form on each page, made the navigation much easier to use and understand, integrated with the social media channels, and in addition to that, integrated with a blog. And then lastly, just did an overall technical audit from a search perspective, making sure that the content could be found and it became visible. And as a result, once we did that, the number of goals that happened and conversions that happened here increased to 10.5%.
Yeah, and this is significant because in the previous part, where their previous website, they weren't actually tracking this on a regular basis, and so the number of leads, I think, has increased about tenfold, just making some of those changes, which we might think are rudimentary, but they need to be changed, not just on one dealer, but any dealer that supports the products or services that you sell.
And really what ends up happening, so we developed a methodology to score websites from a search engine perspective to understand how is the technical structure of your website, how does it stack up versus the guidelines that people like Google and other search engines will put out there for you on what makes a quality website. And when you look at the chart on the right-hand side, some of the websites that we work on will start out with a very poor score. For example, the example in the previous slide started out at a score of 37 out of 100. And the goal here is to optimize all of these different areas, metadata, some things around the server that you have, site maps so that search engines can find the content. All of these things in conjunction will overall bring more people to your website, and then if you do some of the optimization for conversion, will generate more leads for your business.
Right, we affectionately call this chart on the right our spider chart. The goal should be that you should see this as close to 100% blue as you possibly can, and frankly, most of the sites that we've looked at, and we do a lot of website work, rarely do we find a site that scores above 50 on this, so there's plenty of room for improvement.